Hi, and welcome to this video on installing the latest release of Ontolica. This new release has a lot of changes, so there'll be a little bit of difference in the way it's installed and set up. So I'm just going to go through this here in a video to help you do it. So I've got three machines here. We'll imagine that we have Ontolica already installed, so for those of you that already have Ontolica installed. And what I'll do is I'll first uninstall the version that you have, and then we'll go ahead and install the new version. I'm going to install both Ontolica Search and Preview, and of course with that aggregate as well. Won't cover fast management in this video, but we'll get Ontolica and Preview in. So first thing you want to do is, of course, download the package. I'm downloading our beta here that I'm testing, but you'll get the new release package when it's available. So the first step is actually to remove the back end of Ontolica Preview on all of the machines. You probably got it installed now on your app server and all of your web front ends. So we want to go ahead and remove those right away. So go to Ontolica, our programs and features is one way to do it. Alternatively, we can go to the original installer that you had. So if you have the installer on the machine somewhere, you can run that Preview backend installer. And I'll just show you an example here. The Preview backend installer is in here, and this MSI will also remove it. But I'll go here to remove the backend with programs and features, and that's Ontolica Preview, and I'll just click uninstall. Now you've got to do this for all of the machines where you had the Ontolica backend installed. So I'll go ahead and just show you how to do it with the installer. It's really simple. This is on one of, let's just say this is on one of my web front ends, and I just want to remove the conversion service that I had on that machine. And in this case, we will go ahead and use the control panel again and just find it and uninstall it. Okay, this is actually not one of my web front ends. This is just a Windows machine, but you can imagine that it's a web front end. I've just gone through all the machines and removed the Ontolica backend from all of the machines in my SharePoint farm. So the next step is to uninstall the front end, the Ontolica solution package. And the best way to do this, of course, you can do that a couple of ways, with the solution farm solutions, manage farm solutions in the system settings in SharePoint, but that's really not the best way to do it because there's some other stuff that needs to be done as well. So the best way to do that is actually to find your original package and run the setup.exe, and our solution installer will take the task of removing, basically asking SharePoint to remove it from the machine. So we'll run through that. Now, while this is working, I'll just talk a little bit about the new release and the new architecture. The new architecture allows us to put the conversion service outside of the SharePoint farm. This is really important because the conversion service is actually our bottleneck in Ontolica Preview. This is the service that actually does the conversion of all of the documents when we're building previews for them. So I'm going to go ahead and uninstall all of this, and it'll take a few minutes. So this conversion service is the only thing that's allowed to run outside of the SharePoint farm. Both the solution needs to be installed on the SharePoint farm, and the gatherer service needs to be installed on the SharePoint farm. But the conversion service can basically be offloaded to another server. And this, although it's not required, you could put the conversion service in the SharePoint farm if you want still. It is probably a good idea just for load, because you can really monitor how much load is on that machine and add resources to that machine or those machines as you want. Also, if you have a large repository of documents, let's say 1,000,000 documents, you can scale out to 10 or 5 or 10 conversion machines. Of course, probably you're using virtual machines, so you can stand them up and take them down very easily. But scale out to 10 machines to do the conversions during that gathering process, and that'll completely relieve any load on your SharePoint farm, and put that load outside of the SharePoint farm onto these machines, which then, of course, you can take down or repurpose later. Of course, there are some licensing concerns with that because you've got to use Windows servers to do that. But there's nothing else required outside of the SharePoint farm if you are on those external machines. Just a Windows Server 2008 R2 with .NET Framework 3.5 on it. So it's really lightweight out there. You, of course, throw more RAM into those machines to make them convert faster and manage it in a much better way. Like I said, you can also keep those conversion services in the farm if you want to run it that way, but it's going to perform less well, let's say. Just as some benchmarks, right now, our gatherer in the present version, not this version, but the last release, will convert out of the box about 2,000 documents per hour with the conversion service and the gatherer running together. We have improved that so that if you scale out, you can, of course, you can increase those settings now in the existing version to be maybe up to 6,000 documents per hour or more, 6,000 to 10,000 documents per hour. But we've increased it to a much larger level so that if you're running 4 conversion service machines out, you can do 1,000,000 documents a day. So that's really huge, huge increase. Okay. So now that I've got the solution uninstalled, I'm just going to jump in here to make sure that it was correctly uninstalled and jump over to my other machines to see that it was uninstalled properly. The services run as services in the Windows Services snap-in. So we'll just have a look here. Yep, everything seems to be good. And I've got my new version on each machine, so I'm just going to extract that new version. Like I said, this is just a beta release, so don't look for this actual version, this actual build. I'm going to extract that on this machine as well. On these machines, these conversion machines, we don't actually require the whole package. We just require this MSI, but I downloaded it to them anyways, because that does make sense. 10.2 is the one we're at right now. So I'll just open up that, prepare it. We don't want to install these yet, but we can see that Ontolica is removed. So I'll go here and I'll extract this one. I'm not sure why we have let me see if that worked. There we go. So now I've got this extracted. I'm going to run the setup.exe, and this will install the latest release. Now there is an upgrade option, but I always tell everybody, I'm working in both sales and support, so when I'm doing the upgrades, I always tell people to remove the old one first. All your settings will be preserved, but you won't run into any problems if you uninstall everything first. The timer job can be a bit tricky in SharePoint, and if we do the upgrade option, sometimes it can get stuck and cause problems. So this part will take a couple minutes. But we have to do this front-end part first before we can do the back-end parts. That's a really important thing. You'll uninstall the back-end first, and then the front-end, and then reinstall the front-end, and then the back-end. So that's an important thing. So let's just take a minute. There's a couple of post-configuration tasks that we need to do with this new install, or this new version, because there's some new pages on it. And the page in particular is the network load balancing page, so we can actually load balance the conversion service with that one. So hopefully this should just take a second longer. Okay, so there you go. As soon as I paused it, it continued. So we'll deploy the preview solution now. This should be much faster than the search solution. Okay, so now my preview solution is also deployed. Great. If I go back to general application settings here in central admin, I'm going to see the Ontolica menu here. Okay, so there it is. And I'm just going to go in here just quickly to check the preview settings. You can see there's a couple more menus here. Load balancing and a performance log, which is a great thing. We've got an enhanced crawl log and performance log, so we can see what the performance on the conversion service is. And our load balancing thing. But what I really want to see here is just to make sure that our content sources are still set. And I want to grab our handler URL from here. I'll just show you what that is. So down here, you can see there's a new line called load balancing handler URL, and that's going to be important for us to take over to the other machines that we have the conversion service set on. So we can go right ahead now and install this gatherer service on this machine. This is the machine that's within the SharePoint, so it's probably our app server where we want the gatherer service on, so it's part of the SharePoint farm. I'll accept that. And I'm going to not install the conversion service here. You can install it here if you want, or you don't have to. Depends on how much resources you have on this machine. And I don't know this account name, so I'm going to use the administrator. You of course should have service accounts for each service. This account should be the account that you use to install SharePoint in order for it to communicate properly with SharePoint. It also needs to be local admin, farm administrator in order to run a service. Great. So now that backend is installed here, I want to jump over to my two other machines. Now, like I said, they can be in the farm or not in the farm if you like. But they don't have to be in the farm. So if you've got a server available, run them outside. Okay, I'll accept that. And here I'm going to put just the conversion service. Now this is where that handler address goes. This is an address to the to our service on that central admin machine. So there, I've got it, put it in. And you can have some choices of whether you want this conversion service to be used with the gatherer only, or with live conversions, or with both. So I'm going to choose both, and I'm going to install that. So you can actually isolate certain conversion services to be used just with the gatherer, which then you can take down later if you want when the gatherer has done its full crawl. Okay, that one's finished, and I'll jump over to the other machine, and I'll do the same thing. Just a conversion service, yes. Put my handler address in there. I'm going to do the same, have them both working with both on the fly conversions and the gatherer conversion. Okay, that one was quick. And so these are good. These are set. We can actually jump out of these machines if we want now, because we actually don't have to use them anymore. I can look here to see, just to make sure that the service is running. Should be called Surfray in this by its application name. There it is. So under Ontolica in the snap-in. I'll just leave these open, but I really don't need them anymore. Now I need to go back here, excuse me, and make the my front end settings here. Now I could possibly have them already from my previous installation. So here you can see I already have them set. Actually, this one of them I don't need, probably this conversion 1. So I'll just delete it. It was the one that I had set before. So I'll delete this item. So I've got these two conversion services. And because I had set in that handler in the installation, I didn't have to come in here and make these settings. That URL to that handler automatically notified SharePoint that the conversion service was installed on that machine and it was available for use. You can see there are some settings we can make here. I'll just explain them to you. One is a port. You could see during the installation that I did in the conversion service that you could choose a port that you wanted, and that's in case those ports are already used in your network and you don't want to use them. You can just change the port there, but you have to make sure the port in this setting is the same as, of course, the port in the conversion installer. You can say whether this one is used by the gatherer service, whether it's used for the on the live conversions, which of course we made those settings on that front end too. You can enable it or disable it, and then you can make an automatic enabling or disabling. And what this does is it checks every 15 minutes to see if those conversion services are live. So if one of them goes down or the server breaks, then it will check to see whether they can use that conversion service. This is really important because you don't want to be sending requests to a dead machine. So if the conversion service is down on a particular machine and someone makes a request for an on-the-fly conversion and they get to a machine that's down, then you don't want Ontolica to be sending them there. So that's cool. And those should be working now. Now we can actually look at the task manager and see how our performance is. We're using quite a bit of RAM, but that's probably SQL. Let's have a look at the processes and sort by memory. Yeah, SQL. Our gatherer here is going. It doesn't seem to be using too much, a couple hundred megabytes, which is a pretty average, pretty normal, I think. We don't have the conversion service on this machine, so we shouldn't expect a big spike in this. Back on the other machines, we can check our processes and see that the conversion service is actually working here, and its daughter process, the Surfray OIT converter, is actually going on and off and working, but not using too much memory here as well. This can, of course, get a lot more as you put load on it, as we increase the amount of converters that we have, but it should never go too much. Of course, you can manage that and add more machines in order to manage that. I'll just show you where we can up those settings. Now that we've got a lot more capacity, we can probably actually increase the speed at which we're doing this. And that's here in this content sources. So we'll go to our preview content source. Now we have 6 conversion services and 12 download queues, which is way more than default. And I can actually even increase that to a lot more in order to utilize those other servers. So I could actually, let's go 12 conversion processes and 24 download queues, and on just these 3 machines, and see how that affects performance. We can also go back here and check our new logs. We have a crawl log. New crawl log improved. So we can actually find things, whereas in the last one it wasn't great. We didn't get great information about why things were grabbed or not grabbed. And we can see here we actually have some comments here to tell us exactly why things were not found or were not available for us. So that's great. New conversion log. We also have our crawl log. We also have a performance log. So we can actually see how many items and how fast they were being converted in specific times as well. And not a lot of information here, but you can actually see within certain time frames how fast it was going and how good the conversion was. So that's basically it for the new install. We'll just jump here and test to make sure that our Ontolica is still working. We'll go to our, let's say, our pharma site. Okay, and our search. And we'll search for pill. I know that exists. Okay, so all seems to be working. See how fast the conversions come back? It seems pretty quick. So, very nice. So like I said, this is actually, I think I said version 5.5, but this is actually version 5.6 of Ontolica Search and version 1.6 of Ontolica Preview. Good luck.